Hey everyone, and welcome back to What's the Plan, the podcast where we dive into the matters of our careers in the architecture and urban planning field. I'm Haley.
And I'm Andrea. So Haley, what's the plan this week?
This week's plan is all about aging in place.
So the age-old taboo that is growing old. So that was a little bit of a tongue twister, actually. I did not plan for that. Yeah, I don't know about you, Haley, but recently I have found myself having discussions with friends about aging, and I'm perplexed at how many of them are generally afraid of getting older.
Absolutely. I find that so many of us are talking about how time is constantly running out, and even though we're just entering the adult stages of our lives, that is just a constant conversation.
Yeah, like maybe it's because I've been reading a lot about the later stages of life recently, or I follow a lot of content creators that are actually much older than us, so like in their 30s. Yeah, but it feels like what you just said, like a lot of people think that like, especially people in their 20-somethings around me, believe me that like they believe that their social lives are over once they hit 30.
Yeah, no, that's actually such an odd stigma around that, because like it's so weird that we have to think about what we want to do for the rest of our lives and have everything already set for the rest of our lives, even though we're only in our early 20s, when in fact we really should be relishing on our youths, because let's be real, we're only as old as we let ourselves believe we are.
Yeah, and like it doesn't help that like pop culture has deemed anti-aging medicine or like Botox necessary to combat the evils of wrinkles, or TV shows like And Just Like That portray women in their 50s as like physically weak and fragile. Like somehow, I don't personally watch the show, but from the snippets that I've seen, it's like a 50-year-old woman breaking their hip and ending up in the hospital for weeks. It's like, that's very rare for someone in their 50s only. Yeah, or the throngs of people constantly like searching for the elixir of life, or like how to live longer. So like rather than making society more suitable for older adults, I find that like we are bending our way backwards to transform ourselves physically to live better in the future. And as a result, not enough time and effort is actually spent on planning for old age.
For sure.
Yeah, and this topic is important as we are in the midst of a monumental shift in the demographics of the world's population that have both social and economic impacts. And the first one is life expectancy. And over the past 200 years, life expectancy at birth has doubled from around 40 years to over 80 years. So people are living like double in length in time. And as well, behavioral changes associated with health enhancement are showing rates of improvement would appear to be actually rising rather than leveling out. So it's like potentially the people could live to be in like the hundreds or early hundreds instead of like the average age being like 80. So let's look at the actual numbers. So from a report from Arc Daily, in 2015, 8.5% of the population of the world was age 65 or over, which is about 617 million people.
Wow.
That seems quite small when you compare it to the rest of the population, but like to see 617 million people are actually over the age of 65 is quite like wild. And like that number is actually going to increase. In 2030, it's predicted to grow to 12% of the population, and in 2050, to a staggering potentially 16.7% of the population.
Wow.
Yeah, so not only are we like growing in numbers, like number of people, but also population-wise. And in a Canadian context, in 1851, only 3% of Canada's population were 65 and older. So this is like over 150 years ago. And then in 1996, it was 12%. And then in 2025, they predict about 19% of Canada's population will be over 65.
So with this change, the social character of old age has undergone a remarkable transformation in the 20th century. In the past, the elders of the communities were defined less so by chronological age, but rather by institutional seniority, particularly within a family structure. As such, the age at which individuals were actually recognized as being old varied. The contemporary practice of designating individuals above age 65 as old is historically unique and derives from another unique 20th century practice of retiring elderly workers at a fixed age, without regard to their physical ability or mental capabilities. Mm-hmm. As a result, the transition into old age is now defined primarily by the individual's relation to wealth and the economy.
Mm-hmm. And there are many different approaches to old age. However, one thing that holds true for many seniors, my grandma included, is that many of them would like to retain their previous comforts and continue living their lives similar to how they currently are. Hence the emergence of the concept aging in place.
So what does the term aging in place mean? The Canadian government defines the term to mean having access to services and the health and social supports you need to live safely and independently in your home or your community for as long as you wish or are able to. Although this isn't a new concept, it's definitely becoming more and more important within the past few years because the average lifespan for Canadians are increasing, as Andrea has mentioned earlier. Mm-hmm. And along with that, more seniors want to continue living in their own homes as they age rather than move to a retirement home or a long-term care facility. This means that there needs to be a greater emphasis on developing communities that allow older residents to continue living independently. A large portion of planning for independence includes thinking about alternatives for when individuals inevitably outlive the ability to drive safely due to medical conditions that are more common as you age. With that being said, it's important to provide alternate transportation options within communities such as public transit, taxis, low-cost transportation services, or even rideshare options that include family and friends.
Mm-hmm. So before we dive into the many ways planners and architects can create environments to be suitable for aging in place, let's take a step back and investigate why the built environment isn't suitable to begin with. Mm-hmm. So first of all, as we mentioned earlier, society tended to consider caring for an elderly relative as a family issue. And it wasn't until the coming of the Industrial Revolution that ideas shifted in favor of a more societal care system. And particularly in North America, the rise of the nuclear families dismantled the transgenerational family, resulting in more seniors living alone. And this itself wouldn't be so much an issue if it was not for the second problem. So according to Shaping Aging Cities, which is a report done by a global engineering firm called Arup, they say that older people are less likely to drive, favoring public transport and walking. The average person over 65 manages a walking speed of 3 kilometers an hour, which in comparison, I personally can walk about 1 kilometer in 11 minutes. So,
Oh, okay. I thought you were going to say in an hour.
No. In an hour, I can probably, an hour I can probably walk about 5 or 6, depending my overall rate. But yeah, so 3 kilometers, it's for sure half the speed. Mm-hmm. And at 80 years old, that goes down to 2 kilometers an hour. And compared with the average for a working age person, apparently that's 4.8. So I guess I'm just a fast walker. So reducing the distance between transport stops, shops, benches, trees for shade, and public toilets and improving pavements will allow more time to cross the road and encourage older people to get out more. And as a result, these leads to dependence. As a result of the lack of ability to walk, it leads to dependency on others to fulfill everyday tasks. And consequently, it leads to also stopgap solutions such as retirement facilities. However, fortunately, there is a design solution called universal design.
What is universal design?
So universal design is the design of buildings, products, or environments to make them accessible to all people, regardless of their age, their disability, or even other factors. And the term universal design was actually coined by the architect Ronald Mace to encompass or to describe the concept of designing all products and the built environment to be aesthetic and usable to the greatest extent possible by everyone. And in conjunction with his alma mater, North Carolina State University's School of Design in Raleigh, he founded the Center for Accessible Housing in 1989, which is now known as the Center for Universal Design. And although Mace popularized the idea, Selwyn Goldsmith, author of Designing for the Disabled, was the one who led the charge in pioneering this concept of free access for people with disabilities. And most significantly, his achievement was the creation of the drop curb, now a standard featured in most building environments. So, the Center for Universal Design at North Carolina State University expounds the following principles to help guide people into creating universal design. So, the first one would be equitable use. Second, flexibility in use. Third is simple and intuitive. Fourth is perceptible information. Fifth is tolerance for error. The sixth is low physical effort. And the last principle is size and space for approach and use. So, keeping those principles in mind, in 2012, the Center for Inclusive Design and Environmental Access at the University of Buffalo expanded this definition of the principles of universal design to include social participation and health and wellness. So, from there, they wrote out 8 goals to help further this endeavor. And the first one being body fit. The second is comfort. Third is awareness. Fourth is understanding. The fifth is wellness. Sixth is social integration. Seventh is personalization. And eighth is cultural appropriateness.
So how do we apply this to successful aging?
So, in the Journal of Aging Research, published by the University of Windsor, successful aging is defined as the following. So, the first is a low probability of disease and disease-related disability. Second is a high level of physical and cognitive functioning. And the last is an active engagement in life. So that being said, providing older adults with specific universal design options has the potential to increase the ease of completing activities of daily life, while also promoting a continual engagement in their social lives. To help with the recommendations, they have broken it down into 2 further categories. So the first is 3 basic activities of daily living, which includes personal care and self-maintenance. And the second category is 3 instrumental activities of daily living. So let's break them down even further. So in the 3 basic activities of daily living, the first is bathing. So something that designers can do to help ease the elder in bathing is like making provisions during construction to reinforce walls in the shower area to facilitate future installation of grab bars. That way, if there's a chance of slipping, they have something to hold on to.
Mm-hmm.
And another thing, bathtub and shower controls positioned outside of the actual shower to allow for operation outside the fixture, as well as a no threshold walk-in shower. So it's pretty common in most standard apartments where you have like a bathtub shower.
Mm-hmm.
But because the bathtub area of the shower is raised, it's harder for older adults to just walk in because they have to step over. So having just like a shower with no bathtub there, it allows for easier access. Or they actually create some taller bathtub that were like, it's sort of like a standing bathtub where they have a door. So then you can open the door and walk in and then close it and it's sealed so you can have like a standing bathtub without, you need to actually sit to be submerged in water.
Oh, and the door holds all the water in.
Yeah.
Wow.
Uh-huh. So a second basic activity of daily living is physical ambulation. And what this means is more so just walking around and moving. So the first one would be no threshold, so 0-step entrances. So having the outside and the inside of a building being at the same level, so there is no steps that they need to maneuver. And having wider doorways and corridors, as well as open floor plan. And another thing is having straight staircases with consistent risers and treads in a stopping place, such as a landing midway between levels. So as people are going up the stairs, they can see where their destination is, and also there's a landing for them to take a break if necessary.
Mm-hmm.
And then for the final activity of daily living is, they call it toileting.
Okay.
And similar to the bathing, they suggest having provisions to allow for installation of grab bars by the toilet. So if people need assistance lowering themselves onto the toilet, they have something to hold and prop themselves up and down. As well as if you're living in a multi-story house, having a downstairs bathroom where you don't need to go upstairs to use is quite recommended. As well as Something I don't really hear much about or haven't learned much about is an adjustable toilet.
Okay.
An adjustable sink for easy access with a short reaching distance to paper dispensers and, once again, grab bars.
I can definitely see how those would be helpful.
As for the instrumental activities of daily living, they include food preparation. So they recommend having countertops at varying levels, as well as cabinets that accommodate limited reach ranges and allow various ways of approach and manipulation, as well as color contrast. So like large print readouts and audible and tactile feedback controls. That way, if like people have a poor vision or their fingers or their hands are not sensitive to touch as well, like you have much stronger abilities to actually be able to read. A second activity is shopping. So lowering or making height adjustable electronic devices used in typical purchasing transaction. So if you're at like a self-checkout, all the self-checkouts are typically at a same height. So perhaps having one that is lower that will allow for people that are using, I guess, walkers or assisted chairs to access. Another is, once again, using large print on signs indicating aisle numbers and locations of goods and on packaging as well. And automatic powered doors at entrances and exits. And the last activity is transportation. So having a connect local street network within communities to create short drives and walking distance. And this all seems like pretty simple, but the biggest challenge to actually implementing all of this is just a lack of center education overall for designers and also costs.
For sure, yeah.
So now that we have universal design under our toolkit, let's get into the case studies that have executed successful aging and aging in place.
So to start off, one very successful consideration of aging in place is through senior village communities or independent living communities. These communities are designed for seniors who are still relatively active and need very little care. This type of housing arrangement allows seniors to live within the same community as other active individuals around their age, which provides them with a sense of community. Essentially, these are gated communities that are typically only offered to individuals who are within an older age bracket. The nice thing about these communities are that they're designed with the universal design in mind when creating these communities. And that also means that everything from outdoor amenity space to the design of the bathrooms, like we mentioned, have been adapted to allow for residents to be able to complete their everyday tasks with as little assistance as possible. Within these communities, there are usually also an abundance of features for these residents to take advantage of, such as specialized transportation services to and from nearby centers, home healthcare services, and some even include private golf courses and club houses within the community. So with these communities, there's definitely very successful aging in place happening as they take into consideration the needs that older adults might need in order to still fulfill their daily lives, but still allowing them to own their own homes and live in a place where they can call their own.
So as for citywide interventions, there are a multitude of things that cities can do to make the public realm more age-friendly to allow for aging in place, such as wider sidewalks, more room for varying levels of speed and direction pass, as well as providing a greater buffer between pedestrians and cars, fewer tripping hazards such as like signage or like shallow tree planters that I often find on like a concrete pavement that takes up space and you don't even notice that until you're like walking up to the tree. Greater pedestrian crossing times, tactile guidance at road crossings, easier access to trams and buses, more comfortable benches dotted around town, well-maintained public toilets, more handrails on stairs, and signage for easier street navigation. These examples are all great. However, for cities that want to take it up a notch, they should look no further than Manchester in England. So Manchester is regarded as a global leader when it comes to age-friendly initiatives through a program called Age Friendly Manchester, or AFM for short. And Age-Friendly Manchester builds on the Valuing Older People program, which launched in 2003, and the 10-year Manchester Aging Strategy published in 2009, and then updated in 2017. So through this initiative, they have achieved age-friendly status in 2010, and in 2018, the WHO, the World Health Organization, has recognized Greater Manchester as the UK's first age-friendly city region. Yeah, a destination that I didn't know was possible, but I applaud them for this.
Yeah.
Yeah, and as well, in 2016, they launched the Older People's Charter.
So, how did AFM make Manchester age-friendly?
So, how AFM works is that they execute their initiatives through partnerships and collaborations that align with their work plan. So, their work plan consists of 5 main strategies. The first one is age-friendly neighborhoods, which is pretty straightforward, to support older people, to deliver and participate in community projects and activities, to promote local, social, cultural, and leisure opportunities that support good health and well-being, and to reduce the risk of social isolation and loneliness. A second goal of their work plan is age-friendly services, so to increase awareness and application of the age-friendly Manchester Old People's Charter principles, to increase economic and cultural participation among older residents, and to improve the health and well-being of older residents. A third tier is a communication and involvement, which is to enhance the opportunities for old people to participate in and influence AFM. So they have the ability to say like what they think would actually bring value to them in their lives. So it's not just like other people, perhaps younger people, deciding what is best for older people, but older people saying that this is what I need to make my life better. And as well to increase the number of communications issued in age-friendly formats, and in general just to promote age-friendly Manchester. A fourth tier that they do is the knowledge and innovation. So to complete a needs and assets assessment of the city's older population, to agree a new set of indicators to measure progress, and to deliver research projects that make a difference to the lives of older people. And lastly, AFM hopes to increase recognition of age-friendly approaches in local, national, and international strategies and funding programs, to strengthen Manchester's collaborative partnerships locally, nationally, and internationally, and to secure funding for age-friendly Manchester. So another unique feature about AFM that it is led by older adults. So their board comprises of 20 members called the Older People's Board. And it's quite endearing. And some notable projects that they have taken on is the first one, Take a Seat campaign. What do you think that's about?
I'm gonna say that's to introduce more seating in public areas.
Bingo. So Take
okay.
a Seat campaign is a low-cost initiative, which is amazing, aiming to raise awareness about how older people may struggle to get out and about because there's not enough seating available in shops and other public spaces. So by applying a We Are Age-Friendly sticker in their window, participating shops can let older people know that they will be made welcome and offered a chair if they need to rest while they're purchasing their goods.
That makes my heart so warm.
It's so cute. So wholesome. Another one is North City Nomads, which is a nonprofit community organization offering coach day trips with the aim of reducing loneliness and social isolation among older people. So it's basically like a charter that will take people to just outside the city so they can go out to the nature and hang out with their friends.
Oh.
As well as the Greater Manchester Aging Hub, which is launched in 2017, is a regional platform that brings together a variety of partners with the aim of coordinating a strategic response to the opportunities and challenges of an aging population. And what they do is they organize a lot of programs of activities with varying themes, including economy and work, age-friendly places, healthy aging, housing, planning and transport, culture and learning, technology and innovation, and communications. So basically, it's sort of a community center where older people can go to get information and just connect with other older folks.
Wow, that's also nice.
So now we know why Manchester has been awarded like the UK's first aging city, and I feel like every city should now start doing this as well.
Yeah, it's definitely time for Canada to step it up.
Mm-hmm.
To summarize, what would you say are the keys to successful aging?
Yeah, so I think based on what we've talked about today and what we've learned this past week, researching for this, I think the keys to successful aging are, first off, being okay with growing older.
Yes, that's a big one. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like once you accept that, like you can begin to thrive and like take in the other steps. The second is universal design. The third is walkable neighborhoods. The fourth is seating.
Yeah.
Lots of seating. And the last one is just places for social gatherings and activities.
Yeah, I think those are all really good key ideas that will help with successful aging. And so, aging in place was the plan for now. Listen to our next episode to continue figuring it out with us.
Thanks for following along to this episode. If you liked it, please give us a like, review, and subscribe for more. Until then, follow us on Instagram at What's the Plan Podcast for what the next plan is.